It hit me in the elevator. That cold, metallic silence. My reflection in the brushed steel. Still in shock. Still hearing his voice. "We're letting you go, effective immediately." Just like that. No warning, no meeting with HR. 1 hour ago, I was his star. Now I was jobless, holding a cardboard box like some sitcom cliché. Except this was real, and it hurt like hell. Before we dive in, where are you listening from? And what time is it for you right now? Drop a comment below. I read everyone. Help us reach 10,000 subscribers before the end of the month. I made a promise to my dog. Once we hit 10K, I'll buy him a brand new cooling mat. He's counting on you, and so am I. So if you enjoyed the story, please hit that subscribe button. My name is Jackson Reed. I'm 33, scrappy by nature, and I don't play office politics, I just deliver results. Or at least I thought that was enough, until Monday. 6 months ago, I was brought into ArcLight Consulting like a secret weapon. They were hemorrhaging clients, profits were in free fall, and morale was in the gutter. The founder, Colin Maddox, had built the firm with a few Ivy League buddies, and they were brilliant, but clueless when it came to people and reality. They needed someone who could connect, someone who could pitch, close, retain. I was that guy. They didn't say it, but I knew they saw me as non-traditional. No MBA, no pedigree, just grit, charm, and a track record that made their spreadsheets blush. I didn't care. I wasn't there to fit in. I was there to fix things. And I did. By the end of Q2, I had landed 2 major contracts from Fortune 500s, brought back a lapsed $4 million account, and personally coached a junior team that turned into a top-performing pod. I was working 70-hour weeks, traveling non-stop, skipping weekends, all because I believed this would finally be my shot. Then came the all-hands. "Let's all give a round of applause to Jackson for crushing Q2, Colin said, clapping slow and smug. The room echoed with polite applause, but his eyes didn't smile. That was the first red flag. The second? I was excluded from the executive retreat in Aspen to keep numbers lean. But I knew Dave, our worst-performing director, got a suite and brought his wife. Still, I stayed quiet. Head down, eyes forward. And then last Friday, after a record-setting week, I got a Slack message. "Hey, quick chat when you have a sec?" I stepped into his glass office. Colin didn't look up from his monitor. "Look, I'll just say it. We're restructuring. Your role's being absorbed. Today's your last day." I laughed. I thought it was a joke. Then I saw the security guard standing behind me. "Is this about the commission restructure?" I asked, stunned. Or the new accounts I closed? Colin, I'm literally bringing in more than your entire West Coast team." He leaned back and smirked. "Exactly." I stared at him, trying to understand what the hell was happening, when his assistant walked in and handed him a white envelope. He slid it across the desk to me. I opened it, and what I saw inside made my blood run cold. Inside the envelope was a formal termination letter. Standard HR language, non-disparagement clauses, yada yada. But at the bottom, handwritten in red ink, "Do not contact our clients. Legal action will follow." My pulse spiked. It was like being told not to look behind the curtain. I hadn't even thought about reaching out to clients, yet. But now that message was screaming at me. "They're scared you will." "Wow," I muttered. "You're really scared I'll take my book with me?" Colin smiled like a man who's never been punched in the face. "This isn't personal, Jackson. It's just business." Bullshit. He waited until I rebuilt their pipeline, revived their image, and pulled their sorry firm out of freefall, then canned me before any long-term bonuses kicked in. Probably thought I wouldn't fight back. But he didn't know me. I took the letter, nodded once, and walked out without another word. I didn't give him the satisfaction of begging or yelling. But inside, I was breaking. I walked past the glass offices I helped fill with new hires, past the interns I mentored, past my old whiteboard that still had this month's goals written in my marker. Gone. Just like that. I got in my car and sat there for a long time, just breathing. Rage and humiliation clawed at my chest. I texted my wife 2 words. It happened. She knew what I meant. We'd talked about the signs, the whispers, the looks in meetings, but even still, this felt like betrayal at a bone-deep level. That night, I didn't sleep. My mind was replaying every moment, every late night, every deal closed, every dollar I'd made for them. And now I was the villain? I started digging. I pulled out my personal laptop, opened up my CRM backup, the one I maintained for my records. Not client data, just performance stats, outreach logs, wins and losses. I noticed something odd. A few of my accounts were flagged as legacy under Dave's name, the guy who got the Aspen suite. But those were my deals. I made those calls. I closed those contracts. My hands were shaking. I cross-checked the timestamps with my own emails. I had receipts. Literal, time-stamped receipts. Dave had been reassigning my accounts behind my back, with someone's help. And then it hit me. Colin hadn't just fired me, he'd stolen my success and handed it off to his old boys club, so they could cash in and I'd be out of the way. Suddenly, the message in red ink made sense. They were protecting the con, not the company, and if I was right, I still had one card to play, one they didn't know about, because before Colin fired me, I had already started building something on the side. Something powerful, something they couldn't take. It started 6 months ago, around the time I landed that $4 million legacy client. Late nights on the road, hotel bars, red-eye flights, I started scribbling in a black notebook. Not business ideas exactly, just pain points, patterns, gaps I kept seeing in the consulting world. ArcLight had all the polish, all the Ivy League charm, but their services? Outdated. Cookie cutter. They sold buzzwords instead of actual solutions, and clients were starting to see through it until I masked the flaws with real effort and authenticity. That's when the idea started forming. What if there was a firm built the opposite way? Lean, honest, direct. Built by people who didn't network their way into boardrooms, but earned their way in. By the time Colin pulled the trigger on my firing, I already had a name, a brand deck, and a working prototype for a client dashboard that made ArcLights look like a high school group project. It was called True North Partners. It was small. Just me, a freelance UX guy, and my college roommate, Trey, a data nerd with a chip on his shoulder and a Rolodex full of burned-out corporate VPs. We weren't ready to launch, but now we had motivation. And something better, we had a mission. I spent the next 48 hours in war mode. No sleep, just building. Trey spun up servers. I polished pitch decks. My wife handled logistics like a battlefield general. Meals, inbox, legal checklists. But the real chess move came Monday morning. I waited until 9:01 a.m. Then I sent 5 emails, each one to a client I'd personally brought in at ArcLight, all currently being managed by Dave and his cronies. Each message was simple. Hey, client name, just wanted to say thanks again for the chance to work with you over the past few months. I'm no longer at ArcLight, but if you ever want to talk more about what real consulting could look like, built around results, not ego, I'm here. No pressure, just respect. Jackson. 3 replied within the hour. By lunch, 2 had scheduled calls. By dinner, 1 had already said the words I'd been waiting for. We've been unhappy since you left. If you're building something new, count us in. That night, Trey cracked a beer and said, "You realize this means war, right?" I looked at him and smiled. "No, man. This means freedom." But war was coming anyway, because the next morning I got a letter from ArcLight's legal team. And it wasn't a cease and desist. It was something worse. The letter was 5 pages long. It arrived by courier, signed and stamped like it was some royal decree. Cease and desist was just the heading. The real meat was in the language. Accusations of IP theft, client poaching, reputational harm, and, my favorite, unauthorized retention of proprietary business data. I read it 3 times while the courier stood awkwardly in my doorway. They weren't just trying to scare me. They were trying to erase me. Thing is, ArcLight had a reputation for this, quietly burying former employees with so much paperwork and intimidation that no one dared fight back. But they had made one huge mistake. They assumed I was alone. I called Trey. "We've got a problem," I said. He chuckled darkly. "We've got proof, dude. Remember those Slack exports you saved?" "Right. Before I left, I'd downloaded my personal archive. Nothing shady. Just my own Slack messages, emails, and client comms I was directly involved in, and buried in those threads were gold mines. Conversations where Colin told me not to log key client feedback because it might be discoverable. Screenshots of Dave taking credit for my accounts, in writing. One particular message from Colin to the executive team that said, "Jackson's too good to keep around long term. We'll use him to clean house, then pivot back to our core people." That line hit me like a brick to the chest the first time I saw it. Now, it was leverage. We sent the ArcLight legal team a polite but firm response. All client communications initiated post-termination were within legal bounds and based on personal rapport, not contractual obligation. No proprietary files have been used. However, we are aware of ongoing internal misconduct that may require disclosure if escalation continues. We attached 2 screenshots, just enough to let them know we had teeth. Then we waited. For 3 days, nothing. Then I got a call. It was Elena, a senior executive at Crestline Dynamics, one of ArcLight's most high-profile clients. "Jackson," she said, "are you building something?" "I might be," I said carefully. She didn't laugh. She didn't blink. "I've worked with ArcLight for 4 years. You're the only reason we stayed this long. They just sent us your replacement, and he spent the entire meeting talking about his golf handicap." I tried not to smile. "Elena, I'd never ask you to leave them just to follow me." She cut me off. "Good, because I've already made that decision." That was the moment I knew. The power was shifting, not because I was out for revenge, but because I'd done the work. I'd built trust, and the people who mattered remembered that. By the end of the week, 3 more clients had quietly followed suit. Colin hadn't just lost a consultant, he was losing credibility. But the best part? That hadn't even started yet, because I was about to go public. I still remember the exact second I hit post. It was a gray Thursday morning. I was sitting at my kitchen table, coffee going cold, hands shaking just slightly over the keyboard. The LinkedIn post was short. Director. No anger, no dirt, no names, just truth. 6 months ago, I helped a firm triple its revenue and restore client trust. Then I was fired. No explanation, no severance. So I built something better. If you're tired of buzzwords and broken promises, let's talk. We're building real partnerships now. True North is live. 3 sentences. That's all it took. By noon, the post had 2,000 likes. By 5 p.m., it was 10,000 DMS flooded in, not just from potential clients, but from people inside ArcLight, analysts, admins, even mid-level managers. Quiet messages like, They've done this to so many of us. They stole my project last year and gave it to Dave. I'm ready to jump ship. Please tell me you're hiring. The mask was slipping. Colin had spent years building a brand of polished perfection, the firm with charm, pedigree, disruption. But behind the curtain, it was cronyism and cover-ups. And now people were talking. Because I wasn't just a fired employee anymore. I was a voice, a mirror. And suddenly, ArcLight didn't look so invincible. The next day, I got an email from a journalist at Business Sphere Weekly. She'd seen the post. She wanted to talk. I've been hearing whispers about ArcLight for a while, she said. You just gave people permission to speak up. I hesitated. I'm not trying to burn bridges. She laughed. Sweetheart, that bridge was doused in gasoline the second they tossed you off it. I gave her the facts. What I could, what was clean. She didn't need dirt. She needed a pattern. And ArcLight had one. The article dropped Monday morning. The hidden rot in elite consulting. Former employees post-Sparks industry reckoning. My name was front and center. So was True North. So were 3 anonymous quotes from current ArcLight employees confirming internal manipulation, fraudulent crediting, and client misrepresentation. By noon, ArcLight's website quietly went offline for updates. By 3 p.m., Colin's LinkedIn changed from CEO to just Colin Maddox. By 5 p.m., I got the text I'd been waiting for. From a number I didn't recognize. You win. I hope it was worth it. CM, I didn't respond. Because it wasn't about winning. It was about reclaiming my name. That night, we got our biggest break yet. A tech startup in Chicago, Series B funding, aggressive growth, $12 million consulting budget, wanted to meet. The founder messaged me directly. I saw your story. We want in early. Let's talk. I looked across the table at my wife, at Trey, at the mock-up of our pitch deck. I said the words slowly, letting them settle. We're not the underdogs anymore. But there was still one thing left to do. Before I could move forward fully, I had to confront Colin, face to face. I didn't plan to see him again. But when the Business Sphere Weekly story went viral, and half the city's consulting world was whispering about ArcLight's collapse, I got the invitation. A charity gala. I'd skipped these things before, tuxedos, champagne, hollow smiles. But this one, it was hosted by the Crestlin Foundation. Elena was chairing it, and True North had just inked a 6-figure contract with them. She insisted I come. I walked in with a custom navy suit and a name tag that read, Jackson Vance, founder, True North Partners. The ballroom buzzed with legacy firms pretending nothing was on fire. I shook hands, smiled, even hugged a few old interns who now worked at better places. Then I saw him, Colin Maddox. Still tall, still smug, but thinner, like the mask no longer fit his face. He was standing by the bar, alone. He noticed me. I saw the flicker of recognition, followed by something else. Unease. I walked over slowly, not to gloat, not to threaten, just to finish the story. Colin, I said. He turned, forced a smile. Jackson, you've made quite the splash. Funny, I said. I was just thinking the same about you, only yours looks more like a crash. He didn't laugh. He looked tired. The kind of tired that comes from realizing you burned the wrong bridge, and the fire's coming for you next. You didn't have to do all this, he said. You could have stayed quiet, taken your loss. You didn't just fire me, I said. You erased me. You fed my work to your favorites, then acted like I never existed. That wasn't business. That was betrayal. He looked away. For a second, just a flicker, he looked ashamed. You win, he muttered again, like he had in the text. But this time I shook my head. No, Colin. I built. You schemed. I showed up when it mattered. I earned loyalty. You printed business cards. You didn't lose because I fought back. You lost because the truth eventually outruns the lie. He swallowed hard. No words. I left him there, by the bar, in the shadow of the empire he thought would last forever. That night, True North announced our first 7-figure client. And I didn't feel petty. I didn't feel vengeful. I felt free.